Welcome to your ISET pre-departure orientation and congratulations on your upcoming study abroad in Austria and Germany. My name is Charlene Garcia and I am the Student Services Officer for Latin America and Northern and Central Europe here at ISEP Study Abroad. So, in today's pre departure orientation, we're going to cover culture and daily life in Austria and Germany, academic matters, health and safety, things you should know before you go, and then how to stay in touch with ISEP throughout the duration of your study abroad. To start with, I want to talk about life in Austria and Germany and just some of the fun things that you can expect for your upcoming study abroad experience. Both countries are very different. So this orientation is your introduction to Austria and Germany, but we do encourage you to do your research ahead of time. We're just giving you a glimpse into what these cultures look like and giving you some general advice for navigating your study abroad. One thing you should know right off the bat is that punctuality is important in both Austrian and German culture. In Austrian culture, the main language spoken is German, but there is a wide variety of dialects. Small talks and greetings are important. A little bit goes a long way. Just simply asking, "How are you?" is a great way to connect with other people. There's also a pretty huge cafe culture and a variety of local and traditional foods, both savory and sweet, that you can look forward to trying during your upcoming study abroad. For those of you going to Germany, the official language spoken is German, and there are a variety of German dialects. In general, there is a heavy emphasis on outdoors and enjoying nature and outdoor life in Germany. Germans are known for their very direct communication styles, so make sure you keep that in mind. Directness does not mean rudeness, it is just part of their communication. They are the kind of people who like to get to the point in their conversations. And some things you can look forward to are also traditional cuisines like cake, breads, wurst or sausages, kebabs, and so much more. When it comes to interpersonal relationships as you're navigating your study abroad, greetings are super important. There usually is a formal greeting like a firm or quick handshake, both of which are important in both Austria and German. It is incredibly important that you're using formal titles in both countries, either Herr or Frau. And then don't be surprised if when you first meet people, they are a bit more formal than what you might be used to. It takes time to build friendships with local students, but it is an endeavor that is worth the effort. So please don't give up. And then when it comes to seeking out assistance and help, don't assume that your professors and coordinators are going to check in on you at all the time. They are there to support you and they want to support you in your study abroad and ask any questions, but you should be the one to initiate that conversation. When it comes to housing, typical university student housing is furnished and has a shared kitchen. Not all apartments have Wi Fi, but some students only use internet while they are on campus or they purchase a data hotspot. This varies depending on the university that you are going to, so make sure that you're reviewing your ISEP acceptance package for details regarding your specific accommodations at your host university, any deposits you should be mindful of, and what's included in your upcoming housing. When it comes to meals, tipping is not normally necessary, but you can always round up your bill if you feel like you had exceptional service and you want to thank your waitstaff. In Austria, you should always ask the server to bring you your bill. They're never going to bring you your bill automatically, and it's really common for people to grocery shop every few days rather than shopping in bulk. This is especially true of when you arrive at your dormitory or your housing or your student apartment, whatever your situation is, depending on the university that you are attending, and you have a smaller fridge. You don't want to buy food for weeks in advance. Typically, in these countries, people are buying food for a few days at a time. While most stores will provide you with plastic as well as canvas shopping bags, there is a charge associated with it because there's a heavy emphasis on sustainability, and you want to make sure that if you can, you're bringing your own grocery bag. But if you do happen to forget a grocery bag, you will be offered a canvas or plastic one for a small fee. And when it comes to your housing, you should have access to cooking facilities, but you may need to provide your own cooking utensils, pans, dishes, pots, etc. And if you are a person with a dietary accommodation in this region, most dietary accommodations can be met. Let's talk about technology. So, while you are studying abroad, you're going to want to think about your phone plan. How will you access data? How will you get in contact with anyone should you need to get in contact with them? And what is your service going to look like? To start with, we recommend that you check with your provider about international plans. Some phone providers do have international plans at an affordable rate, but if that is not an affordable rate for you with your current phone provider, you might want to consider purchasing a SIM card and a local plan in Germany or Austria. The thing that you want to make sure that you have planned ahead for is that you've enabled your phone to accept other SIM cards, digital or otherwise. And you can always speak with your phone provider to ensure that your phone is capable of accepting a SIM card internationally. When it comes to internet, you're going to check with your housing office about the availability of internet. There may be restricted data or an Ethernet cord that you're going to need to connect to the internet on campus. But it's fairly common to find free Wi-Fi spots throughout populated cities, but we want to make sure that you're always following Wi-Fi safety protocols, especially if you are on a public network. Remember, if you are on a public network, you don't want to access any sensitive information or data, as anyone who is controlling this network has the ability to see what you are doing on that network. Now let's talk about your finances in Austria and Germany. The currency in Austria and Germany is the euro. And if your host university is distributing a stipend to you, you're likely going to need to open a local bank account. Please keep in mind that opening an Austrian or German bank account can be a very lengthy process. So you're going to need to pay really close attention to your orientation and follow all of the instructions given by your host coordinator. You're also going to want to start opening that bank account as soon as you received the instructions from your host coordinator on how to do so. You're going to see further information about how to receive your housing or meal stipend, if applicable to you and your ISEP study abroad program, within your ISEP acceptance package. In general, though, we say it's always a good idea to carry some cash, as not every restaurant or shop is going to accept card, but most businesses are moving in that direction. Still, for safety purposes, any emergency or any situation where you find yourself in a store or restaurant and card is not accepted, you'll be thankful to have a little bit of cash on you. Sports and leisure, talking about culture and life in Germany and Austria. Both Germans and Austrians both greatly appreciate their national football, soccer team. And then there's other popular sports in both countries like tennis, handball, volleyball, basketball. You get the idea. Sports is a big part of culture and community building in these countries. As a student, you are often going to be able to access discounted university sports services, but these are not included in your ISEP fees. However, you'll want to speak with your host university coordinator and look into accessing some of these events, as they're a great way to make friends and build a local community. In addition, there are often events and trips organized by your international student office or the ESN, which you'll learn more about. That's the Erasmus Student Network, or the Student Union. So making sure you're keeping your eye out for the activities that are happening on your campus as a way to immerse yourself in local culture on your campus and build community. Major holidays and vacation periods. There are regional or city festivals. Some of you have definitely heard of some of these events, like Oktoberfest, there's Arcel Carnival, the Austrian national holiday is on October 26th, then there's German Unity Day on October 3rd, and of course, the famous Christmas markets, which happen in both countries throughout the month of December. Things that you may not know. While German is the official language of both German and Austria, Austrian German actually has its own unique dialect and vocabulary. Austrian culture also tends to involve coffee houses where people gather to read, socialize, and discuss ideas. Germany borders 9 countries and Austria borders 8 countries, which makes it easier to explore other countries and cultures. But of course, we also encourage you to explore your your host country while you are there. And students in Austria and German often receive discounted public transportation passes, which you may learn about during your on-site orientation at your host university, but make sure you're also checking with your host university for options. In addition, we encourage you to take your student ID with you when you're exploring to museums, theaters, etc., as sometimes they will have a student discount. Now, while study abroad is a wonderful opportunity for you to grow, learn, and immerse yourself in a new environment, it also comes with things like culture shock. You're going to have a bit of an adjustment while you're there. Typically, when you first arrive in your host country, you are experiencing your honeymoon phase. Everything is great, everything's wonderful, you're having a fabulous time. But then you encounter your first bit of conflict or culture shock, and you're thinking, that's not how I would do things, or I'm not used to this, or this just feels unsettled. You will recover from that. You'll slowly adjust to this thing, and you'll get right back to that honeymoon phase where everything is wonderful and great and you're loving everything, and you'll dip back up. And so it will continue to go through the natural flow of your adjustment of culture shock while you are studying abroad. I can assure you that this is completely normal. As someone who studied abroad twice, I can tell you I went through this cycle many, many, many times while I studied abroad, and still I consider my study abroad one of the most impactful, amazing, and incredible experiences of my life. So I do really encourage you to work through this and know that if you're having some difficulty adjusting, that is normal. But of course, your ISEP student services officer and your host university coordinator are always here to assist you. Some reflections from past ISEP students. Students in general have had a wonderful experience while they were abroad in Germany and Austria. If you're curious about hearing more in-depth student experiences, I encourage you to pause this pre-departure orientation here to read these excerpts. In addition, your student services officer can share more information with you about blogs, videos, and other resources previous ISEP students who studied in Austria and Germany have shared with us. Now let's talk about some of the nitty-gritty, in-depth details of your upcoming study abroad experience, starting with your academics. Higher education systems in Germany and Austria generally have teaching and grading styles that are different. Local students tend to enroll in a set program of study, and they customize that study throughout their years at their university. In general, individualized learning is emphasized. There usually is a large amount of outside reading, and students take their exams very, very, very seriously, and so they study hard. But because students are primarily doing independent study and doing their own reading, it's very unlikely that course syllabi exist. If you have asked for a syllabus, you've likely heard from your student services officer that it's not readily accessible just because of the nature of the heavy emphasis on individualized learning. But if your home university does need information about the content of your courses, they can use the course descriptions on your corresponding program page. Many courses are typically going to have fewer assignments and exams than you're used to in your home country, and your final exam may determine a pretty large portion of your grade. Remember, students study hard for their exams. They take it very seriously. Some things that you should know is that the academic year in Austria and Germany typically runs from October through July. The winter semester is the fall, and the summer semester is spring. Some other things to keep in mind is that Germany and Austria use the European Credit Transfer System, that is ECTS. Most European students are taking 24 to 30 ECTS per semester. Typically, 2 ECTS equal 1 US credit, but please keep in mind this is ultimately up to your home university to translate and transfer. So it is your responsibility to know the transfer requirements of your home university. When it comes to attendance, you should be in class. You have to attend your classes. You want to make sure that you're saving all of your course materials. And please note that in order for you to receive grades and credits for the courses you complete, you must follow the explicit instructions of your ISEP host coordinator. I know it could feel like you've received a ton of information, but with that said, all that information is being shared with you because it is important. So please make sure that you are reading communications thoroughly and you are following the instructions instructions given to you. Now, there is a grading scale of 1 to 5 in both Austria and Germany, 1 being an excellent grade and 5 being unsatisfactory. Again, you may pause this pre-departure orientation here if you want to get a better sense of what this looks like on your transcript and what that score means when it comes to your academics, your grades, your assignments. Some tips for successful studying in Austria and Germany is taking responsibility for your studies and being proactive. If you have a question, if you have a concern, remember your professors are always happy to help you, but they are not going to check in with you. You are going to need to reach out to them and ask them for assistance, ask for support. You also want to make sure that you're developing your own plan for your studies. Again, that heavy emphasis on independent study in Austria and Germany. So making sure that you have a plan to keep yourself accountable to your studies. And then when it comes to registration methods really vary depending on the university that you're attending in these countries. So you want to make sure you're following those registration instructions shared by your host university coordinator and ensure that you are registered. You are also going to see this information in your ISEP student portal under the pre-departure information tab. In there, you can see information about pre-registration, your program dates, any additional forms that you have to complete, but you'll also want to check with your host university about if there is an add drop period and when that add drop period is. And please remember, only the classes you register officially appear on your transcript. Your courses may need to be adjusted upon your arrival, and that is okay. Just make sure you're keeping an open mind and keeping your options open. And as your course selection is being finalized, make sure you're checking in on your online account or with your professors to ensure that you are on that class list. Again, a course you are officially registered for. You want to make sure you're always attending the first session and all classes after that, where many important organizational matters are discussed, like your assignments, the grades, the weighting of these assignments, etc. You're also going to want to make sure that you contact your home university academic advisor. Make sure that the courses you are enrolling in are going to earn you credits that you can use, and also that you are enrolling in the minimum number of credits required by your home university. Remember, just because your host university has a specific minimum requirement, that doesn't mean that it's the same minimum requirement as your home university. You want to work really closely with your academic advisor at your home university when it comes to your course enrollment. You also want to make sure that you submit any required forms to your host university coordinator. They will reach out to you about this. It will also be in your ISEP acceptance package. So please make sure you're reviewing everything thoroughly. And when you're communicating with your professors, use proper email etiquette. You want to make sure you're properly addressing your professor, including using those formal titles. Include your name and your student ID number, and remember direct communication. So be clear and be precise. If you do have special arrangements that you made directly with your professor, always make sure to get them in writing via email to avoid any issues at the end of your semester. Now let's talk about campus life. Make sure that you're exploring local festivals and on-campus events. Both Germany and Austria are very well known for their festivals that happen throughout the year. So make sure you're keeping your ear on the ground to learn about all of the festivals that are coming up in your area and attend those as part of your immersion in your new host culture. Many universities in Germany and Austria also have an international student group or international student buddy program. We really encourage you to explore these resources. And remember, this varies from university to university. Always ask for help, and there's lots of opportunities for you to make friends, like attending local sporting events at football games like soccer. There's also loads of student clubs you can join, ranging from the international student groups to theaters. Again, this varies from university to university, so make sure you're checking your host university's resources. And then you have the Erasmus Plus Network, which is the ESN, which is the Erasmus Student Network. It's a nonprofit international student organization. They organize events like day trips and activities designed to immerse students in their host country. And as an ISEP student, you can join this for a small fee. Now we're going to talk about your health and safety and things that you should keep in mind as a student studying abroad. When it comes to your health and safety, as an ISEP student, you do have insurance and healthcare abroad. Your insurance is Cultural Insurance Services International. Most staff, including your student services officer, will refer to this as your CISI. In addition, you have AXA assistance, which is travel assistance, evacuation, and repatriation insurance. So, what happens in an emergency? When you're thinking about healthcare abroad, you want to make sure that you are reviewing your health insurance information, your CISI health insurance information, which you can find on the ISEP insurance page in our health and safety resources. But for you specifically as a student studying in Austria or Germany, please keep in mind that you are required to enroll in the CISI Limited Medical and Global Assistance Plan at absolute minimum. ISEP Health and Safety Program covers students outside of their home country within the dates of enrollment listed on your CISI ID card, which you can find in your ISEP student portal within your ISEP Health Insurance tab. Now, if you are a student studying in Austria, you're not only going to need to enroll in the CISI health insurance through ISEP. If you are a student going to Austria for the full year, you also need to enroll in Austrian national health insurance. But if you're a semester student going to Austria, you only need to enroll in CISI health insurance. Now, for those of you going to Germany, all students, regardless of whether you're going for a semester or year, are required by German immigration law as a student studying in Germany. You are required to also enroll in German national health insurance upon your arrival. So you're going to have CISI Limited through ISEP, and you're going to have German national health insurance. So you are required to have both. Outside of the US, typically you're required to pay for your medical expenses out of pocket, and then you submit a claim to request reimbursement. Now, if you're in a situation where you need assistance, AXA assistance can arrange a direct payment between CISI and the medical provider for large outpatient and inpatient expenses. But if you need assistance with payment arrangements, contact AXA assistance as soon as possible, as well as your ISEP student services officer, because they can share additional information with you about AXA. But more information about local healthcare resources can be found in the health and safety section of your ISEP dashboard, and will also be covered during your on-site orientation at your host university. But make sure you're carefully reviewing your CISI policy brochure. Again, you can find that in your ISEP student portal and in the ISEP health and safety information. And you will also want to make sure that you're downloading My CISI app on your phone, because we will use this should an emergency happen in your host country, and we need to get in touch with you to ensure that you are safe and well. Now, there's some critical health and safety resources you should keep in mind. Please make sure that you're reviewing the full health and safety presentation, which you can find linked here. When it comes to an emergency, the ISEP emergency line is +1 301 681 2388. And then you also have your ISEP health and safety programs. Again, that's CISI, that's AXA assistance, and just make sure that you're reviewing that thoroughly and you know this information ahead of time. The last thing you want in an emergency situation is to try to scramble for this information. Keep it with you, keep it accessible, and make sure that it's something that you know well. Now, what's expected of you? You want to make sure that you're mindful of any natural disasters, just keeping your eye out for things that are happening, environmental hazards, physical hazards, social hazards. Generally, take responsibility for your own personal safety, pay attention to security warnings, follow local social norms. If you are choosing to drink while you are abroad, make sure that you are practicing safe and responsible drinking. Make sure that you stay aware of your surroundings. And if you are traveling, we recommend that you travel in pairs or small groups rather than alone, especially at night. But learn from your host coordinator the best and safest ways to travel at night. In general, just general safety protocols that you should be mindful of and aware of. Mind your pockets. And if you feel like you're in a dangerous situation, remove yourself from that situation. Always look to your ISEP host coordinators and local students for information about safety around your host universities and while traveling. And if you do find yourself in an emergency situation, here's what you should do. You should follow local media and law enforcement instructions in the case of a large scale event. If it is necessary, seek immediate attention from local emergency services. The European Emergency Services number is 112. The fire department and ambulance service numbers in Germany are 112 and police is 110. The fire department services in Austria is 122 and the police is 133. But who are your first points of contact during an emergency? First and foremost, it's the in-country police and emergency responders. Do not immediately call the ISEP emergency line. You want to get in contact with someone who can help you immediately. Then you're going to contact your ISEP host coordinator again because they are on the ground, they have an emergency team, and they will be able to best assist you. If you are in a situation where it is a large-scale event and you are safe at that moment, please make sure you're using the check-in feature in your MyCISI portal to let us know that. And then you can utilize the ISEP emergency line to let us know what is going on so that we can initiate assistance and make sure that you're getting the support that you need. Now, make sure that you are also replying to all ISEP communication during an emergency situation. We will send you a check-in from your student services officer, so please make sure you're reviewing that email and you're confirming with your student services officer that you are okay, and also make sure that you're contacting your host and home university coordinators. Now, some things you should know before you go. When it comes to packing, you might be wondering, what should I pack? What do I need? Your apparel needs are going to vary depending on your host city, even if you are going to Germany or Austria, depending on where you are in that country, weather, culture, and your personal preferences will impact what you choose to bring. You'll also want to make sure to think about toiletries, medications, which CISI can assist you with if you need to get in contact with them to get more information about whether or not a medication that you take is legal in Germany or Austria. You can also make sure that you're consulting with your doctor if you take a medication and you know that you will need that prescription abroad. So speaking with your health provider, your healthcare provider, about if you can get an advance prescription for that to take it with you. Consider your electrical needs like adapters, plugs, voltage differences, and then also make sure that you have paper copies and digital copies of important documents like your passport, your visa, if applicable, so that you have that information with you. Do not check those physical copies into a checked bag. This is something that you need to have easy access to. If you lose your checked bag, you don't want those documents in there. You want it to be on your person. And in addition, make sure you're checking your pre-departure information in your ISEP dashboard. This is where your host university has shared so many important details with you about what you need to know, as well as what is included in your housing. You can also see on that list that is shared in your pre-departure information if you need to bring sheets and towels. And some things that you should do before you go: if you are a student studying on a direct program, make sure that you're paying any program fees 30 days before your program start date. Check with your phone provider about an international data plan, or ensure that your phone is able to accept a local SIM card. Make sure you know the date and location of your on-site orientation. This will be in your ISEP student portal in your acceptance package, and your host university coordinator will share this information with you. Also, make sure that you're aware of the minimum full-time credit requirements of both your home and host university before you register for your courses. And write down the address of where you're going and keep it with you on your person in your carry-on. Make sure you have your host coordinator's email and phone number somewhere you can easily access it on your phone, but also physically written down somewhere in case you lose your phone. And make physical and digital copies of all of your important documents and keep them in different locations. And some resources we really encourage you to review. I know I've emphasized this quite a bit, but it's because it's important. Please make sure you're reviewing your ISEP country handbook, your ISEP acceptance package, your pre-departure information and health and safety information, and any announcements from your host university. Yes, you are getting emails from your host university coordinator, but if you're watching this pre-departure orientation and thinking, I haven't received any email and you've been accepted to the program, you want to make sure you're checking your spam and junk folders and reaching out to your student services officer because, yes, you are receiving communication from your host university. So let's talk about how you can keep in touch with us. When it comes to staying in touch, you want to determine before you leave how you're going to stay in touch with your family and friends back home. And remember to contact your family upon your safe arrival. The presentation is linked, and within the presentation, you can see some of our more general tips for staying in touch with family while you are abroad. And we would love to hear your story. We love connecting with ISEP students who studied abroad or are currently studying abroad. Perhaps you follow us on social media and you've seen some of this. So these are just some of the ways that you can get in touch with ISEP. And remember to use the hashtag ISEP Study Abroad to share your photos and updates with us. With that said, have a wonderful time in Austria or Germany. We look forward to hearing about your experiences. And remember, your ISEP Student Services Officer, your host university, and your home university are all here to assist you. Have a great time abroad.